So probably let's get things started. Probably a few people are still joining us. We are close to 200, so it's a wonderful attendance rate, and we really appreciate that so many of you were curious to join this presentation, and we will do our best to share some tangible recommendations with you, and in field sort of look, insider look. The reason we wanted to come up with this session is that as the year is sort of starting and as educators are planning the recruitment season under a lot of uncertainty during the ongoing COVID, we thought it might be beneficial from us who are based in China. So both BOSSA and BONARD have offices, operation team on the ground in China. It would be useful to share what's the situation like, what's the agent market experiencing, what's the general population experiencing, what are some of the sort of trends and shifts in destination preferences, in sort of study abroad preferences. So Jon has some big data survey that was done, and happy to share some of the information. We would like to complement that with some of our agent market data and information, traditionally as we do, and then perhaps look at some of effective recruitment channels that have proven to be effective to some extent, at least in the current period. So that's in a nutshell the purpose and the respective parts of the presentation. And let me just briefly introduce our institution. So at BONARD, we are a market intelligence and strategic development firm. We specialize in international education and student housing research, also solutions. So we support governments, destination bodies, sector associations, language school chains, individual providers, universities, K-12, and so on and so forth, assisting them to sort of better tap destination source markets for international students and achieve better results. We have roughly 40 people in-house, 4 offices in Vienna, in Slovakia, and we have a branch office in China. We're members of UNWTO and SMR Research Society with individual memberships, and members of the GRI Real Estate Club. That's when it comes to our credentials, and perhaps Jon, over to you.
Thanks. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Jon, and I've been a part of BOSA for almost 7 years in China, which is where I'm currently based. BOSA is China's Education Agency Association, established in 2004 as a nonprofit organization for agencies recognized by the Ministry of Education. BOSA is now a membership body representing the country's study abroad services industry. It's fully managed and operated independently. Its staff do not work for any agencies and are employed by BOSA. It's a volunteer-based association, so all members are verified as legitimately operating companies within the study abroad industry. Our collective members are located throughout China, from the largest corporations to small consultancies. For those of you who've recruited in China, you may recognize some of our members like New Oriental, JJL, Can Achieve, Shinyway, and LG. Over 1,500 individual agents have been certified through our training course called CEAC, which we launched with ICEF and the Ministry of Human Resources. And if you're familiar with us, you're probably aware of COSA. COSA is our sub-association, which we set up in 2012 to serve members that were not based in Beijing. Hence, our website is bosa-cosa.org, which you can visit for more info about us. And we do have an international department that helps educators and service providers connect with our agency network. So just check out our site to learn how. To quickly give a reason why we have such big data on Chinese consumers planning to study abroad. Last year, or late last year, we branched out into the digital space by launching a platform to help connect our member agencies with potential students. And we also wanted to help Chinese students and parents identify reputable agents in their cities and refer them according to their preferences in degrees and destinations overseas.
Thank you, John. And I guess I forgot to share my name. So I'm Igor Skibickij, and I'm Chief Operations Officer of BONARD and also head of our China branch office. I spent 7 years in China, sort of leading our projects there and our team of local recruiters and researchers and specialists. So that's when it comes to my experience with the market. Moving over to our sort of first part of the presentation, let us give you the latest outlook in terms of the market situation. When it comes to Chinese economy, as you probably know, it fares sort of considerably better than rest of the world. It managed to recover year to year. So the average annual growth rate is roughly 2% for 2020. And as you can see on the left chart, the first quarter, it was particularly difficult. So the economy dipped by 6 percentage points. It contracted later throughout the Q2, Q3, and towards Q4, it managed to recover. And now it is roughly at pre-2020 levels. So basically caught up with the impact of COVID and on a good further sort of moderate growth trajectory going forward. When it comes to situation in the country, from our colleagues, we know I haven't been there already for over 12 months, as it's almost impossible to travel, but John is there and our colleagues are reporting that the prevention and control policies are implemented across the country. So people have to wear masks, they have to basically do frequent temperature checks at any entry-exit points. People have QR codes, which represent their sort of COVID certificates, and they are being scanned at multiple points of entry, and everything is very digitalized, very organized from what we know. So I think China is exemplary in regard how it managed to contain the pandemic through very disciplined and consistent measures from the government, supported by large population, and with the solutions they have introduced in order to allow mobility in country. So the mobility is sort of as usual. Everything is open, restaurants, public places, flights, trains, and people generally enjoying a large amount of freedom, which is very difficult to comprehend in comparison to the situation around the rest of the world. Also, the vaccination program is ongoing, and Sinopharm has been approved as a sort of main vaccine for public deployment. The efficacy rate is subject to debates. However, the vaccination is progressing on a large scale. Sort of by our records, we saw that some 50 million people so far have received the first jabs. So all the people in the critical infrastructure, public servants, and it should continue at a speedy rate. So by all these sort of indicators, the market should be in a good shape for educators to either return to or to reconnect in the course of this year. And there is probably less concern whether there will be Chinese students in position to afford to go abroad, as the economy is in generally good shape and the purchasing power is in good shape. So parents and students can afford to go study abroad. The only problem is that they currently cannot travel. So a lot of demand is combusted within the market, and hopefully in a moderate amount it will soon resume. Maybe last comment regarding Chinese embassies and visas. So generally Foreigners are allowed to travel to China, but they have to be residence permit holders, so people with work permits or relatives. However, when it comes to new visa applications, the situation there is more challenging. And from the research we have done and sort of trying to apply, we see that embassies across the world are not encouraging people to apply. It's like officially it is not prohibited, but the general approval times or sort of processing times are either very slow or they are not happening, and therefore it's still not possible to travel to China on a large scale, except for very specific sort of business purposes, medical purposes, so there are exceptions. Good. Moving forward and sort of towards the Asian market situation, we just want to share a few sort of indicators how the Asian market is doing. So from our observations in the market and from our interaction with agencies, there has certainly been a very strong impact on the Asian market. So the market downsized, and many, especially small to mid-sized agencies, have either closed temporarily or permanently. Agencies that sort of survive and manage to adjust to the circumstances are mid to large sized, and they continue to operate and recruit students and consult. However, even in these agencies, a lot of personnel has rotated. So if you have had relationships with counselors, with managers, there might no longer be that. And that's really the case that is sort of strongly reshaping the Asian market. So it has downsized, and there was a lot of staff rotation, and some people are permanently out of business. Some agencies went into other avenues of business, started to focus on domestic programs, so changed the scope. And this all calls for a certain reconnection, reapproach to the market. Agencies are generally optimistic compared to last year. So at least they see vaccination is ongoing, and there is a sort of hope that the mobility might resume towards later part of the year. Numbers of student inquiries haven't significantly changed between the last 2 quarters of the previous year as compared to the start of the year. So the new inquiries are on a consistent level. However, they do not necessarily convert to bookings, as students have to wait or defer their study plans. Agencies are generally sort of favorable to participate in student fairs, and by student fairs we mean physical student fairs, but they are not happening on a larger scale. So all student fairs are very small and very sort of low size, low attendance, in hundreds rather than in thousands, as educators were used to participate in the big expos such as China Education Expo. So those major fairs so far have been announced as going online potentially this year, but we haven't seen yet conclusive decisions. So not much recruitment activity is happening in person in terms of student fairs. On the other hand, the virtual fairs are also generally favorable, and most agencies are in fact interested in online online meetings with overseas educators.
Okay.
Over here, perhaps to Jon.
Yeah. So disclaimer: this is not BOSA's internal data. This is actually from the authorities, but it does reinforce why educators and service providers need to stay on top of their partner relations. So these statistics display the intense turnover in the entire private education business sector from last year, actually the first 3 quarters. It's important to clarify that the 706,000 does not represent education agencies, but mostly small and medium-sized businesses involved in education. So these are usually after-school tutoring centers in a wide range of fields, not related to study abroad, although language centers and some agents would be accounted for here. While a large number of private businesses closed down, plenty of new ones emerged, and particularly in the online space. In regards to the study abroad consulting sector, from our knowledge, and as Igor said, most legitimate agents are still in business, though the majority of agencies have experienced some degree of downsizing or restructuring. That being said, about 2/3 of companies that closed down were replaced by new ones. About 65% of the new companies have around 150,000 US dollars, roughly give or take, conversion rate of registered capital upon opening. Furthermore, the market for edtech and online-based education is heavily competitive. So for some perspective, out of the top edtech unicorns in the world, a majority of them are Chinese. The platform and online-based learning landscape in China is extremely and arguably the most competitive in the world. So if you're wanting to enter this market, it is highly recommended that you find a local partner, act fast, and have vast resources on hand. Thanks.
Thank you, and I'll probably let you continue.
Okay. Okay. So to kick things off, here's our, I'm sorry. And here's official data on China's top 10 cities' GDP and economic growth for the first 3 quarters of 2020. This data is not BOSA's coincidentally, but it does support our findings on what we're about to show you, which demonstrates a correlation between local geoeconomics and the study abroad market. Here you can see that aside from Wuhan, sorry, can you go back? Most major Chinese cities remained resilient last year, and while the largest and most international cities, Beijing and Shanghai, pretty much hovered around 0, the other cities still managed to expand despite the pandemic. Okay. Okay, now here's our first round of big data. So if you've been to a BOSA conference, you might recall our stance on the growing importance of 2nd and 3rd tier cities for the past several years. What you see here is info on 2.34 million Chinese consumers who are planning to study abroad. So note these locations are not the origin of current students abroad. For the sake of time, I will only touch on the top 2 cities, Beijing and Shanghai, as well as Guangdong province and a few other locations. But as a general strategy, you don't expect high numbers from one location, stay diversified, and understand that most agencies in 2nd and 3rd tier cities are not as mature as their 1st tier counterparts. Start with Beijing. Beijing is still by far the highest concentration of education agencies in China and is the country's education capital for top universities, as well as a number of universities. So many educators, when they plan their recruitment, think of Beijing. Just about all of the largest agencies in China are headquartered in Beijing and have multiple offices in 2nd and 3rd tier cities. So if you're partnered or wanting to partner with a big agency, ask what other cities do they have branches in and see if they can try promoting you in those locations. Shanghai is, why is Shanghai ranks first? These numbers represent individuals who are seeking info for themselves, and Shanghainese consumers are usually sophisticated and savvy about finding info on overseas institutions. Although the highest amount of private and international schools per capita is in Shanghai, consumers there don't utilize agencies as much as Beijing. They also prepare in other ways to study abroad, like through their school, trusted peers, or direct channels. So if you're recruiting from Shanghai, you can still enlist an agent, but you should consider other methods to get in front of consumers. Guangdong province, as you see, Guangdong has the largest market share of students planning to go abroad. And given that Guangzhou and Shenzhen, 2 of China's top 4 cities, are only a quick train's ride away from each other, as well as emerging cities like Dongguan and Foshan. There's also a high emphasis by governmental authorities to make Guangdong province the leading province in education. Countless new international schools are going up, and Guangdong is the wealthiest province in China with a long history of international trade and close proximity to Hong Kong. And last, behind Guangdong province are Jiangsu and Zhejiang provinces. So you should add Hangzhou, Nanjing, and Suzhou to your recruitment destinations. as well as central Chinese cities like Chongqing, Wuhan, and Chengdu. All of these cities are considered new first-tier cities, or more commonly known as second-tier cities. Okay. Ooh, sorry, let me, okay. As a supplement to the destination data, here's a flash survey that we did with about 50 consumers located in any part of China just last December. These consumers were actually the first round of student referrals that we gave to our member agents using our platform. The cohort is microscopic compared to last slides, but worth presenting nonetheless. On the left, you see what kinds of degrees they're planning for. Engineering and business have always been close. They've always been close, but with a growing emphasis in STEM, engineering might be keeping the top spot. And in regards to arts and design and education, interest is higher than it was just 5 years ago, according to the last time we did this kind of survey. And as a result of both a maturing and diversifying market. And on the right, it's obvious that the UK is now the most desired destination, but unlike in the big data set, Japan has a large presence. I wouldn't take these findings too definitively since it's a random survey, but it does somewhat reaffirm that Asia Pacific will be a beneficiary of the growing market. Prior to the pandemic, Asian countries were rising significantly. Okay. And yeah, this is the second round of our big data. I want to specify that this data is on consumers who are planning to go abroad and not currently abroad. So a common question is, has the current situation affected Chinese students' desire to study abroad? And has the pandemic led to any shift in favored destinations? Our answer is the desire for study abroad isn't going anywhere. And as a matter of fact, it will stay on an upward slope. However, the secondary education market, summer camps, and short-term programs abroad are taking major hits. And this year might be somewhat better than last, but we're not sure by how much. The US is still regarded as the gold standard in education, according to many agents, but a combination of internal factors within the US and a rise in competing destinations might be plateauing its demand. The US will remain the top study destination in terms of sheer numbers. However, currently the UK, even before the pandemic, is benefiting from favorable visa policies and gaining the most from the US's stagnation. English taught programs in Europe are gaining massive interest. The big uptick in interest is in Germany, France, and Switzerland, which was surprising yet kind of expected. As second and third tier city consumers enter the market, we're seeing more dispersion into non-Anglo study destinations. A common question from Australia and New Zealand is, since they are closed, or they're still closed, will Chinese students still want to go there in 2022? According to some agents, they're still doing their courses online, waiting for the borders to open. And sure, there will be a slight minority of switches to other destinations, but it's fair to assume that Australia and New Zealand bound students will wait it out. I won't go in detail, but some agents think the current geopolitical relationship between China and Australia will cause a temporary slowdown in enrollment this year, possibly deflecting students to other Asian Pacific or European destinations. Okay.
Yeah, and if I may complement that with our agent service. So in basically, actually, in this month, we did a qualitative survey on agents that we have good relationship and good knowledge of, and who are representative of the market. So we conducted 25 in-depth interviews in order to determine what were the major shifts in study abroad preferences as compared to last year, and it actually complements what Bosa has determined through the consumer survey, that the US has seen the biggest sort of decrease in popularity as measured by agent feedback. On the other hand, UK, as you can see, it has incurred the largest amount of increase in terms of interest. So that's the two major shifts in terms of study destination preferences, and UK for the first time overtaking USA. For Australia, there is also a notable decrease, however slight, not very high, because of what John mentioned, that the travel ban remains in place. There is no immediate date when the country might reopen, and therefore students are not possible to travel. Also, in a long-term perspective, Australia does not offer that much sort of capacity for international students, so it will have a factor on that. Other countries are on the increase, or other regions, so Singapore, Asian countries, even European destinations, all have seen certain increases in agent portfolio and in their preference to promote these particular destinations. So geopolitics now certainly affect destination preferences to a larger degree. The management of the pandemic situation overall, it leads to parents and students carefully assessing their their level of interest and commitment for destinations they have chosen, and they are looking at potential alternatives. John, over to you.
Okay. So going back about a year, here's a quick overview demonstrating the pandemic's impact on study abroad as a whole in 2020. These insights were collected exactly around this time a year ago from 100 BOSA agent members. On the left, you can see the level of study that students were preparing to go abroad for. Higher ed was more or less equal, while secondary education was about a quarter of all students, and the rest were still deciding to go abroad or not. On the right, in regards to deciding to follow through with their plans last year, about 70% of students said they would postpone, while 16% claimed they terminated plans to go abroad completely. 12% chose another destination, and the rest were undecided. Okay. Now, third round of big data, and this flows very nicely from a year ago's survey. Our latest data shows that the levels of study being searched for now, you can see the vast majority of students are seeking information on master's or undergrad programs overseas, and a smaller ratio for secondary ed and other programs. This 4% does not reflect the size of the market. It just indicates that fewer parents are searching for info on overseas schools in the secondary sector. Prior to the pandemic, as you just saw, postgrad and undergrad were more or less equal, and the secondary bound students were increasing. Most agents confirm that university bound students will either postpone or just go ahead with their plans to study abroad this year. So those of you in higher ed, do maintain your plans for long-term recruitment strategy. And for those of you in secondary education, there has been somewhat of a shift to international schools in China, as opposed to going abroad to boarding or private schools. Many would-be overseas students currently enrolled in an international school in China have enrolled again for the next year, according to some domestic agents. But on the flip side, many parents still have the perceived value of in-country immersion, and they start the planning process years in advance. So you should still stay active. The secondary ed market might have gotten tighter, but you need to keep building or maintaining relations with your in-country recruiters and partners.
Thank you. And over here, I'll transition into my part of agent market updates. So to complement the other spectrum of the consumer perspective with the agent perspective, what you can see is the agent distribution map. And I can say that it's going to be largely redrawn this year. As I indicated, that many agents have exited and closed, some of them permanently, and others might be starting business or returning as soon as the situation improves. So it's basically an agent census that we need to carry out, and we already started with the process. So we are refreshing all our agent data that we currently have. We have 2,500 agents on record, and we intend to reconnect with all of them to determine whether they are still active or whether no longer, whether they still promote the destinations that they used to promote, how's the business, how's the staff retention, and so on and so forth. So we intend to publish this later, probably in April to May, as it takes a considerable amount of time to screen all the agents, but we will certainly inform all of you as soon as the information becomes available, and we will probably run a similar webinar session as we do every year. When it comes to agent market temperature in China, you can see some of the takeaways in terms of agent mood. So most agents intend to send students in autumn 2021, provided they are able to. So the mood remains slightly optimistic on the warmer side. And when it comes to number of inquiries the agents are getting, majority basically claim that they see either less students or that the students levels have remained the same, but only a quarter claim that they actually see more students. When it comes to sort of types of inquiries or problems they are dealing with, on the side of their clients, the clients generally want to know how safe the destinations are, how is the relationship with the particular destination. So again, the geopolitical factor is becoming more of a topic or a decision-making factor. They want to know when to go abroad, whether there are online programs or hybrid learning options available. They want to know how sort of student-friendly the given institution is, what are the safety standards in place, what kind of booking, cancellation, deposit policies they have. So all these things need to be factored in when communicating with agents and equipping them with the sort of program information for this year. When it comes to recruitment channels that agents currently exercise, basically they are either they're mostly focusing on online recruitment, to some extent physical recruitment. So when it comes to sort of in-person student fairs, third agents is sort of has same level of interest, another third agents is less interested, and a third of agencies are not interested at all to participate as because their business have been significantly downsized. Also, when it comes to online fairs, it's sort of a little better. Half agents are interested and slightly more or less interested and prefer face-to-face fairs. So they're still traditionally sort of set for the traditional recruitment, in-person recruitment methods. However, embracing more and more the online channels that are increasingly proliferating in China. So also 79% of agencies are interested in virtual meetings. So it's basically online meetings as part of online agent fairs, or preferably individual meetings. So they are rather willing to commit time to speak with one or few particular potential partners than to dedicate a whole day for a virtual trade mission or fair. But a virtual trade mission or fair for them is still better than to participate in a student fair that is either not happening or is significantly restricted in terms of number. So this is the most notable change in terms of recruitment preferences. When it comes to their disposition to online study, it's generally neutral to pessimistic. Those educators of you who have sort of invested time and effort to build up partnerships or promote online study options through the agents have probably not seen much result. And if you did, then you can consider yourself lucky, because in generally the agents are not very keen to take on online replacement of in-person learning. Students don't necessarily want it. Students are keen to continue studying in person, and for them in-person delivery has the value to wait and are determined to wait. And for agents, it sort of diminishes the commercial prospect. So the commissions, the prices are lower. They need to restructure their recruitment models and their recruitment channels. And now more and more students are basically directly exposed to educators through the social media, through sort of direct online consulting. So the agents are losing added value in the process. And therefore, as many as 78% of them are not interested in sort of taking online programs as part of their portfolio. On the other hand, there is a lot of program offer circulating the market. So you can see that as many as 90% of agents that we have asked received some kind of online program offers from their partners or from new prospective partners. And many of them received multiple ones. And it did, in fact, create a lot of noise and confusion last year. As soon as the educators started to migrate to online platform and started to introduce them to the market. So when it comes to students, students are, it is surprising. Based on our agent survey, the agents responded as many as 50% of students are interested in online programs. However, the problem is that the interest does not materialize in bookings. So students consider the options, but they are hesitant to sign up. So they wait and they don't commit to deposits or full fees. And therefore, the institutions invest time and effort and budgets, but don't see the numbers as they had expected. So that remains sort of the little bit of not a little bit, but actual challenge in the market, that these students are not converting to fee-paying students. And the opposites of spectrum are basically 8% interested and 8% not interested, or not very interested in the online options. And moving on to the recruitment channels. So our take and recommendation on what to focus on and how to best invest time when continuing maintaining presence in the Chinese market and recruitment efforts. Certainly the virtual student fairs have been on the uptake. You can see just a screenshot with the search words for virtual student fair, and immediately there are options of student fairs organized either by agents or educational providers in China. So they are ongoing and in fact proliferating. And they are most likely to stay a much bigger channel going forward, even when the situation recovers, as they have multiple benefits. So they're great in awareness building, they are cost effective, they offer accessibility to less exposed tier 3 and tier 4 cities where educators don't always travel for the actual in-person fairs. The user experience has significantly improved. So the whole effect of interaction with the particular institution and their staff for students and parents is now, it's more enjoyable and more tangible. And the outcomes are also tangible. So educators that participate in the virtual fairs generally go away with a pipeline of prospective students and parents that they can follow up, and they can basically try to proactively reach out and progress towards applications. As before at the actual student fairs, it would be largely hit or miss what kind of students and parent you meet among all the students that are there. So in this regard, these fairs have proven to be somewhat more tangible. However, the challenge is still that it's a virtual experience. So still, parents, students like to talk to the counselors directly, and therefore the in-person fairs will remain a channel in China. But the virtual fairs, by our expectations, will become more popular than before. Similar assessment can be done for trade missions and agent fairs, again online, the virtual ones. Again, they represent sort of cost-efficient, time-efficient solution because they can be organized sooner. They have global and local reach. So now pretty much any source markets and cities of choice can be screened, selected. Most appropriate dates and locations can be determined. And the much added surprising factor is that the more these platforms become accustomed to and the agents become accustomed to them, the less sort of logistical challenges there are with no-shows, with cancellation rates. We see surprisingly very low no-show rates at the virtual trade missions and agent fairs. So people are sort of becoming more dedicated to this format. And another interesting opportunity or trait is that they can meet more owners or executives, of agencies, the educators. For the in-person fairs, it would be often difficult, and in our experience, often difficult to bring the key people from agencies, and the bigger the agency, the more difficult and more time needed. But the virtual fairs sort of leveled the field for a little bit in this regard. So it's actually now more a little bit easier to attract owners and execs to this platform. So we believe they will stay and they will become a more sort of proliferated recruitment channel, even when the industry returns to the in-person agent fairs, expos, trade missions, and so on. And of course, there are also webinars. So over to you, John, if you would like to take on that.
Yeah, sure. I'll just make this quick. Every Wednesday, BOSA hosts agent webinars, whereas we invite experts and educators from around the world to present virtually. The format is one presenter and usually one or several dozen agents from a variety of cities in China. Afterwards, the presenters are given the attending agents' full contact information. Until we can start hosting our live annual agent expos in Beijing, as we were doing before, the online workshops are proving to be a convenient and cost-effective alternative. So more information is on our site. Okay.
And I'll conclude this part with online marketing. So online marketing has really taken off, as we have seen in the course of last year, especially when it comes to China. So pre-COVID experience was that really as few as 5% of educators had some kind of dedicated strategy for online recruitment in China, official accounts. So having a dedicated WeChat account, Weibo account, having a Chinese website or a landing page, and a combination of multiple platforms was almost unheard. But again, what happened this year is that educators had to somehow repurpose the budgets meaningfully, and the online channels and online recruitment have proven to be at least a little bit of a remedy for not being able to maintain the physical presence in the market. So, and again, there are multiple benefits to sort of invest into these platforms now, because it's over the years, the process has become somewhat easier and more streamlined. So the platforms have opened to overseas brands and educators, and now there is sufficient know-how in the markets to establish these platforms and how to best leverage them, which saves time, which helps to enhance the branding of educators when they will look to return to the market. So it's a good channel to invest time and some resources in the current period, so that when educators are going back to China, they will be equipped with the sort of virtual interface for the students. So having the official channels with videos, with photos, with student testimonials, this will all help to enhance the branding of educators. So we recommend this as another sort of alternative to the traditional channels that cannot be leveraged because of the travel restrictions in general. If you want to know which channels are sort of worth the time, at least for those who don't yet have particular presence virtually, then you can see the three most popular platforms. WeChat as a sort of social media and texting and general communication app. Is a great tool to leverage in the process to set up public official accounts and gradually over time build followers and sort of content and brand awareness. It can be complemented with Weibo, which is another sort of tool similar to Twitter or Instagram, so great for content sharing and for interaction with the end customers. And it can be further enhanced through the Baidu to have a profile, institutional profile on Baidu, which can be moderated and sort of questions answered, and invest into additional sort of moderate paid advertisement, which Baidu offers similarly to Google AdWords. That's another channel that can sort of assist in recruiting audiences for online webinars, for online sort of interactive events with the educators. So that's another good channel to consider. And let us, John, probably wrap up with a few recommendations and takeaways. So
Yeah,
go ahead if you like.
sure. So these recommendations actually came from our agents from surveys and engagements we did with them over the past year. So the first is regular updates on latest policies. This is more in regards to the pandemic. Self-quarantine, all those things. 2, flexible deposits and cancellation policies just in case. 3, emphasize safety measures and student friendliness. One thing I didn't touch on is, safety has been more of an issue, especially in the US. So if you can accentuate how safe your campus is and the measures you take to protect international students, that's great. 4, travel assistance to comply with regulations. 5, mentioned in a way quarantine measures and guidance. 6, maintain ongoing relationships and look to rebuild new ones. 7, invest in cost-effective solutions like virtual fairs, virtual trade missions, and online marketing.
Let me complement that. Okay. When it comes to actually the particular sort of maintaining the outreach in China will remain a certain challenge, at least for the next foreseeable 6 to 9 months, when the borders most likely still remain closed and countries in lockdowns, as governments will not want to risk a third or fourth wave going about. So it's necessary to sort of plan ahead and invest into cost-efficient channels that can bridge the distance. And that's certainly the virtual fairs that have now taken larger interest from organizers, from educators, and from students and parents alike. And on the other hand, they're not easy to organize, because for educators that have not much track record in China in online presence. It's not easy to recruit students, so certain in-field knowledge is necessary in that regard. Also for trade missions, they have proven to be a very decent platform for educators to maintain relationships with agents, but again, sort of having access and sort of KPIs to vet the right agents, the right people to participate in the trade missions. It invites additional industry experience and knowledge of specialized providers. And lastly, it's the online marketing. So we recommend to dedicate part of the marketing budgets to building up educators' presence in China, as it will serve them in the long term. And it does require certain traction to sort of become established. So inviting followers and proliferating content really takes time. And it's not an overnight activity. It takes about a year to start having some decent exposure and to have it considered as a supplementary recruitment channel, which can lead to applications and bookings later on. So the sooner educators start taking advantage, the better they will be equipped when they later travel to China. And like I mentioned previously, the COVID will largely redraw the agent map. So reconnecting with agent partners and building new partnerships should be on the main agenda for the educators. And I believe that sums up our presentation for today. For our and Bosa services, you're welcome to visit our websites or get in touch with us. And probably, John, if you like, we can take a look at some of the questions that we have received in the meantime.
Yeah, sure. I was looking at a question from Julian Inglis, and I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name correctly. You're saying, or sort of question, I'm assuming that online study, even though online study is not in high demand, students will demand the flexibility of hybrid offerings going forward. Yeah, I would agree with that. Igor?
Yeah, I'm looking through the questions.
Okay.
There's a question: how are agencies and families feeling about Canada, given the geopolitical issues between the two countries right now, similar to Australia? Well, it's a bit of a sensitive question, but from our experience, parents are sort of pragmatic, and for them, the quality of education, certain destination appeal, and career prospects are always going to be the main decisive factor. The other thing is how much of this agenda is being politicized across the media, and they do follow the media sources. And we already know from experience that whenever there is certain tensions, that it does have almost immediate effect on the destination appeal. So to answer that, we believe that the appeal of destinations will not change unless there is more significant effort to somehow restrict or discourage the travel for students. So, yeah.
Okay.
Looking at the other questions.
Yeah, Igor, maybe you and I could jump in on this one together. The question from Peter Thompson: do you believe that tier 2 and 3 cities are showcasing different levels of price sensitivity for study abroad? I don't think that's always the case. I think it's just more about exposure to foreign culture, maybe language, but also savviness on what kind of institutions are abroad. But I don't think there's I don't think it's directly correlated between lower price and tier 2 and tier 3 cities. I don't know if Igor, maybe you have a different perspective. But.
Similar experience. We haven't found it to be the major factor. Generally, yes, the parents, even the affluent or the sort of upper middle income class in tier 2, tier 3 cities earns in proportion less as compared to tier 1 cities. However, sufficient enough to still afford quality education abroad. So the pricing is not the major factor. It's usually the academic prowess of the students. It's the type of career consulting that the agencies provide. So much of that is also sort of influenced by the agents as well.
Yeah.
There's a question, how has the growth of international students in China affected the number of students wanting to study abroad? That's actually a good question. So over the years, we have seen a very robust expansion of international student sector in China, which on one hand is becoming a certain competitor to overseas K-12 institutions. On the other hand, it is also seen as a catalyst for their study abroad. So students that attend international schools in China, they generally do want to go study abroad. And these schools have larger proportion of students that enroll in the joint programs, so Sino-Canadian, Sino-US programs. So in comparison to either Chinese public or private schools, the prospective student population there is certainly bigger. From our experience and observation, are there any new trends of marketing campaign methods targeting at Chinese international students during the COVID-19 pandemic? I would say it would be the ones that we have mentioned today, which you may take as certain recommendations. So the virtual student fairs, the virtual trade missions and agent workshops, as well as online recruitment, all have seen uptake in activity and interest from both educators and from the side of either parents or students. So the industry is doing what it can to survive, and these platforms allow at least to have either to maintain contact with the end customers and still recruit to some extent, or to maintain partnerships with the agents. So they are certainly very relevant to invest time and effort this year. John, any questions you see you'd like to answer?
I'm being completely honest, it's a little late over here, so I'm starting to run out of fuel. So I wish I could, but maybe another time.
No worries. I know it's almost midnight over there, if not already. So there is like 30 questions in the chat, and I'm just trying to pick certain ones that would be useful, but probably we are past our time mark. So let us wrap up here. And what we will try to do is to have these questions followed up individually from our teams in China, so that you can receive further intel or guidance. And of course, as I mentioned, you will get the complimentary recording and the slides of this session. And we remain also available for any follow-up conversations. So do feel free to reach us either through our website or through our social media. You can follow us on LinkedIn, either our BONARD events LinkedIn account, which is dedicated to this kind of solutions that we mentioned today, or our main site, which is more research-driven in international education and student housing. And I think similar for Jon and for Bosa, you can find more information on particular assistance in the market that either of our institution can provide. So let me thank you all. We have had a great attendance all the way until the end, and hopefully this year the situation in China will be reasonably better. and fingers crossed. So thank you very much. And Jon, thank you especially for the late hour presentation.
Likewise, a pleasure co-presenting with you. And yeah, thank you everybody. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Have a nice rest of the day. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.